Hello and welcome everybody to the ORL F2 or Split B League, depending on which you prefer. This is round 20 of the season here for the Mexican Grand Prix. Now, you may not recognize my voice. I was here at the very start of the season, but it's been a minute since I've done ORL commentary. My name is Jacob Hancock, and joining me is your regularly scheduled Maku. Hi.
Good evening. Glad to have some co-commentator again and to not be alone anymore. So we can cover up some more action together. And yeah, we're heading today to Mexico, into Mexico City, to have the very close end of our season.
Yeah, getting right towards the sharp end now, round 20, as I mentioned earlier, and only a couple of races left to go. So it'll be interesting to see whether there'll be a few more sort of hectic moves as drivers might want to try and prove themselves towards the end of this season. We'll have to wait and see. We have a full grid here today, which is always lovely to see in the sunshine at Mexico City. So it doesn't look like we're going to have a rain-affected qualifying session either. So I'm sure many of the drivers will be pretty happy about that.
Yeah, for sure they will. I mean, rain is always not an well, hopefully not an unexpected thing to happen, but it can make races quite more interesting, especially if we get a transition. But yeah, today qualifying without the rain. Of course, it's in the qualifying it's always, I think, a lot worse than in the race, because in qualifying it's just about hot lapping, and rain is just really not the conditions you want for hot lapping.
No, indeed. It can feel like you're losing time and you don't understand it, and then you haven't put enough practice in as well. You want to be in the dry where you know you've practiced 100%, you know exactly where to go at every single corner. And I'm sure most of these drivers will have been practicing their hearts out here in Mexico City. It is Luco, or Lucho, I'm not sure which, the Alfa Romeo driver currently sitting third in the championship, who was the first one out of the pits here to go commence their outlap. So I think maybe we should ride on board with the Alfa Romeo driver and see what they are able to do. The Dutchman is now entering the very final sector of the lap before they are going to open up and start the first flying lap of the session.
Yeah, exactly, and we have even 3 DRS straights on this track. It's one of the only ones with 3 DRS straights, and well, we can get up to some pretty high speeds here.
Yeah, as Luco will be getting to about the highest speed on the circuit right now, heading into the braking zone of turn 1. It's going to be 208 miles an hour. He just about managed to clip into there. I'm afraid I can't do the conversion to kilometers off the top of my head, but I'm sure that you can let everyone know what that was. But yeah, Luco doing well thus far. That looked like a pretty clean opening few corners to the lap, turns 1, 2, and 3. He's got to cut plenty in those ones, and he was able to do so nicely. Into turn 4, heavy braking zone. Turn 5 always really, really tricky. You've got to be so much slower there than you want to be. It just feels so bad, that corner. The double apex of turn 6, I think, is a lovely corner, especially because you can run wide on the exit and get the power down before this very tricky S section. Again, the first corner catches you out. You need to be slower than you think through there. And now it's all about cutting the corners just to the right amount, but not stepping over those lines and not invalidating the lap. And this all looks very neat and tidy indeed from the Alfa Romeo driver. We head into the stadium section of the lap. Very technical, very tricky. A lot of lockups thus far this lap for Luca, who goes deep there into the hairpin in the stadium, and that certainly will not be helping his lap time. Bit of a messy final sector, and then up towards the line we go. It's going to be a 1:13.767 to start off proceedings.
So for what I'm informed, top time should be about 112, low 112s. So about 112.3, 112.2, and we're seeing the first 112 ones from zones. So yeah, Lucho messed up a bit the last sector we saw there. Got a bit wide into turn 13, and therefore the exit out of this whole combination was not really the best. But we don't see really anyone topping the 112 time from zones we've just seen. Top Tom, also driver we had often on the podium and winning races, just getting there for second, but it's only the first lap. And still a thing to mention is, do all these drivers want to drive in the race with their soft tires? Because then you will most likely have to go for a 2-stop.
Yeah, indeed. It would definitely benefit the drivers to be able to qualify on those medium tyres. That much is pretty much certain here in Mexico. It is still zone sitting at the top, though, as everyone sets their first banker laps of the session. Looks like Leonard, Dillon, Till, and Vexit have all invalidated their first attempt, so they'll be under just that little bit more pressure now, having not been able to put in that initial banker lap in the session. Julian in the Haas, Julian, I should say, the German driver, coming through the final section now. The final corner, very hard to lay the power down through there, but up towards the line he goes, and it's all the way up to P6 for the man in the Haas, so decent performance there. Now let's see what Daniel Valla is doing. He's actually on a flying lap as well, but it looks like he actually invalidated just like the other four did. So the Racing Point driver, who's currently sitting first in the standings, not able to set a lap time in these early stages of qualifying.
Yeah, and unfortunately I have to say we don't have Gedoned again back in the race. He was there yesterday to claim... Oh, what place was it? No, yeah, there it is. The 17th just. I thought he was fighting for the top spot, so I'm not sure. I think he had an incident or something. Yeah, I think the last 4 people were retired, so that has to be an incident. Very unlucky last time because, of course, he was defending his championship, and I remember him being in a spot where he surely would have kept leading the Drivers' Championship. But Daniel Valle took the top spot, and yeah, now we were seeing the first guys on the medium tire, or first guy, the first guy, still, who hasn't yet set a lap, but on the mediums you have just really one try. You maybe can make 2 hot laps after each other, but I wouldn't really go for a pit stop between both because you have just one tire.
Yeah, indeed. You don't want to... While it is the more durable of the 2 tires, you don't necessarily want to put it through any extra stress than you need to. Let's take a look at Rainbow now, the Lithuanian driver in the Red Bull, heading down towards turn 1. Going to be using all the road on the entry to turn 1 there. You want to cut, actually didn't cut very much through there, cutting a bit more of 2 and then of 3 as well. 2 and 3 look pretty nice there on board with the Red Bull man, as we now go up towards the second major braking zone of the circuit, braking just after the 100-meter board. Again, struggling to make the apex with a little bit of a lock-up, another slight lock-up into the right-hander of 5 as well, but I don't think that has hurt him anything at all there. I don't think he's lost any time through that bit. Turn 6 looked pretty nice as well. Again, using all the road on the entry to 7, 8, and 9 we go through. This is all looking okay for Rainbow right now. Almost losing it there on the final part of the S section, but holding on to that Red Bull just about. The bucking Bronco there as we head into the castle section. Braking heavily for this hairpin. That's much nicer than we saw earlier in the session. This is all looking like a much better final sector than what we've been seeing from some of the other drivers thus far. And Rainbow across the line up into 6th, so he nabs that one away from Julian. And the Red Bull driver not going to be too unhappy with that.
Yeah, for sure it won't. Quite a good position today. And, well, still something to improve on, but I mean, you got 3 soft tires, so if you want to try to not lock up in those corners, I mean, we'll for sure see in the race and the qualifying a lot more lockups just in those heavy braking zones. I mean, we have this big straight, which is basically as long as the whole circuit, if you just look at the track map. Yeah, let's take a look at... that's the wrong button. Till, who is actually exactly on an outlap, not on a hot lap 2, or should be. I think he's kind of slow, or is he on a hot lap? I'm not sure at the moment, but in theory he should be on a hot lap with the medium tires, but that should actually be an invalidation. I don't know if the game got that.
I think he actually lifted off on the exit there to avoid the invalidation, running wide again. He's not looking good on these medium tires, the Alfa Romeo driver. So I doubt this is going to be a very quick lap time at all as we go through the final sector of the lap, the final corner here. Trying to lay down the power, and it's straight back into the pits for the Alfa Romeo driver. So evidently not happy with the way that one was going, and the Frenchman will have to take another crack at it. Luco, his teammate, was able to move up into 6th with his second run on those soft tyres. Vexit has managed to set a lap time now without invalidating, and it's good enough for 7th place, just ahead of his Sidemax Motorworks stablemate in the form of Patrick Sipos, the Hungarian driver in the Renault, managing 8th place thus far.
Sipos is also a man which dominated races. I think last time, I don't know if he was there, but I think 2 races ago, he was dominating the race from the beginning on, and then just had an incident and crashed, and therefore retired from the race. Very unfortunate for him. But that's how racing goes sometimes. And
indeed, yeah. The Hungarian driver, he does have a tendency, I've noticed actually, I've watched him racing quite a lot, does have a tendency to rack up the time penalties and to get quite a few invalidations during qualifying as well. So that tends to be his Achilles heel. He's a very, very quick driver, currently only down in 8th, so I think he'll want to improve on that. But yeah, as you say, can be a little bit inconsistent at times.
Yeah, and that's also something we have to look out for in the race, because that happened really a lot the past few races. That people just won on penalties. So I think, and nearly losing it there, Patrick Sipos, heading into the final corner combination, into the stadium section. That looks not really like driving on rubber, but driving on ice.
Somehow still able to actually improve on his lap time though, up to a 1:13.3. So I'm not quite sure how he managed that, because that was a dog of a final sector and a dog of a car that Sipos was driving there, but seems to have got some lap time out of it at least. But that's probably going to be hopeful news for everyone else who's just going out on the track now, that they should be able to improve pretty significantly, even if they make some pretty major errors in that final part of the lap.
Yeah, exactly. And with 7 minutes of qualifying left, I mean, I think most of the guys have chosen their tire for the race later on. Other way, they would have already switched to a set of mediums, with just one drive out with the mediums, and he already invalidated his lap. Oh, and with his spin there from Pitchko or Sipos, I think. No,
it's Pitchko. Pitchko's gone around there, the German in the Renault, losing it through turn 3 on his outlap. So struggling to get some heat into those rear tyres, I guess, and getting caught out there at low speed. So a little bit of an embarrassment for the Renault driver, but I don't think it'll be anything that will harm his session too greatly. Leonard is theoretically on a flying lap, but it's not very much of a flying lap, because he's not going very quickly at all. Till, in the Alfa Romeo, back on the soft tyres, is also pushing out there. But meanwhile, so are Kruzix and Zones up towards the top of the order zone. Still sitting on provisional pole for now, the Polish driver. Doing a good job thus far in the qualifying session, but I still think that was his banker lap that he's sitting on there, that 1:12.9. So he'll be hoping to improve on this second run around.
Kruzix gets the first sector of purple. And maybe looking to set the fastest lap so far. If he gets the other 2 sectors right. I mean, the second sector is just a hell of a tricky thing, going through those. You don't want to, I mean, it's basically just, if you steer 1 degree too much, you're already losing time.
Ooh, and there it is on the exit of the entry to the stadium section. Kruzix losing out with an invalidation. So he's probably going to have to get back straight into the pits and strap on yet another set of the red walled soft tyres, and that is indeed what he is planning to do. And it's a shame, because he was improving. That lap was looking good. Sector 2 was all good, and that's usually where it's easiest to cut those corners. But just through turn 10 in the end is where the German driver lost it, as now Arsene in the Ferrari is also pushing, currently in second. Zones was able to improve by about 1/10 of a second in the Haas, and Arsene looking to take the fight to him. The Russian in the Ferrari is currently entering the second sector of the lap, the tough, twisty part of the track, and he has invalidated as well. So more frustration for the challengers for pole here, and Zones sitting pretty at the top for now.
I think we'll see more than usual penalties for corner cutting, especially, well, I think it's just an usual issue if you go through this fast combination in sector 2, through the fast S's, and well, on mediums and hards you just don't have the same grip as if you go on soft, like hot lapping, and that will be a lot of penalties coming in.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that one. This is definitely one of the tracks that's toughest to avoid those corner cuts. There's so many corners that just invite you to take a little bit too much speed and extend on the exit, or just to cut aggressively. And to have really top front running pace, you do have to cut quite a lot of these corners, but you have to do it in such a way that the game doesn't necessarily realize that you're cutting them. So it's a really fine margin that the drivers walk when they go through, particularly the opening sector of this lap, cutting across some of those inside curbs. And it does seem like not many of the drivers have been able to improve significantly on that latest set of runs. So they will be going out for their final attempt sooner rather than later, with only 3 minutes and 15 seconds or thereabouts remaining in this qualifying session. Top Tom, who has 2 wins thus far this season in the Williams today, doing a decent job thus far with P4, about 0.3 of a second, 3.5 away from the current provisional pole time. But it does seem like it's a relatively spread out field for now.
Yeah, well, what means relatively spread out? We have basically everyone from 2nd to 12th place in between of a second of a window.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you just look at lower leagues and the racing there, that's just amazing how close those guys actually are. And we'll see that later on in the race as basically just a train of cars, and only incidents or some mistakes can really cost you the race in the end.
Absolutely. And now let's see. Let's take a look at Daniel Valla, actually. Currently still without a lap time registered thus far in the session, is entering the 3rd and final sector of the lap. Into the stadium we go in the Racing Point. The Spaniard will definitely want to nail this one out of the final corner. Going to not take any liberties with track limits, that is for sure. Because at the moment, not a single qualifying time on the board. Up towards the line, where's it going to be? It's only good enough for 8th for now, for our current championship leader, and I don't think he'll be best pleased with that. A 1:13.3 puts him in a club with Luco and Patrick Sipos in that regard. And of course, he is ahead of Luco, who is his primary contender for the championship right here, right now, because Ghetto, as you mentioned earlier, not present today in Mexico. And Luco, speaking of which, is now starting his own flying lap.
And Top Tom has just again topped the sector 1 times with the purple sector, and is now heading into the S's, the most troubly section, and I don't see an invalidation coming in yet.
Yeah, Tom's backed out of this one. He's thrown down the ERS all the way to 0, so evidently not happy with the way that Sector 2 was unfolding. It was a good Sector 1, as you mentioned, but just not able to keep it going throughout the remainder of the lap. Kruzix has come across the line, and I think failed to improve on his previous best lap time as well, so it's still a Ferrari 2-3 for now. Zones is out there pushing, so is Lucho, whichever one you want to call him, the Dutchman, in the Alfa Romeo in the 2nd sector of the lap, going through this tricky S section, and he cuts once again. We've seen so many drivers cutting there thus far. Daniel Valla going to retire from the session. He's not able to improve from 8th, so 8th will be the highest he can hope for on the grid, and I bet it's going to be lower than that. Patrick Sipos through the final corner up into 2nd, and so close to pole for the Hungarian, but not quite able to knock Zones off of that top spot for now. The Haas driver into the 2nd sector of his lap, actually ran a little bit wide through turn 7 there, and that might have cost him just a little bit of time, but the rest of the S section looks solid enough. What's he going to do once we get into the heavy braking zone for turn 10 here, and then the hairpin for 11 as well, one of the trickiest corners of the whole circuit, and he makes it look easy there in the stadium. Through the final corner we go now. Doesn't quite make the apex there. That might cost him maybe 0.5 of a second, but it's all about getting the power down through the pelotada, and he does improve by 0.5 up to a 1:12.760. Vexit came across the line for a 1:13.1. Kruzix in the pits. Arson's still out there pushing.
Yeah, as well as Top Tom. And Top Tom goes 3rd with a 1:12.9. 3rd driver to go down into the 1:12s. And well, I think if Arson can't do anything about that, our podium is... Oh no! Patrick Cypress would have got an opportunity to go again, but he invalidated the lap and is already on saving ERS and stuff. So no more lap for him, but Arson is coming to the line, and it's going to be a 1:13.010. So very close.
Did he just match his previous best time to the... He did. He set 2 1:13.010s in a row. That is incredible. How on earth? That is honestly quite something. That's consistency for you from the Russian in the Ferrari there. Luco not able to improve and will settle down in P9 with his teammate just behind in 10th. So Daniel Valla has held on to 8th position. That's honestly not a great place to start. Probably Rainbow in P11 will be happier than the few drivers ahead of him, as he will get free choice of tyres going into the session. And that is it for qualifying here. So it will be zones on pole from Patrick Sipos, his closest challenger, followed by Top Tom and Arsen on the second row.
Exactly, and let's see what those guys can pull out of it. And especially, let's see how fast Daniel Valla will catch up to the rest of the top spots. And, well, he for sure want to fight with him too, because even though his qualifying didn't really went his way, he's sure looking for a opportunity on a podium.
Indeed, yeah. Alex for only managing 20th and last in the order alongside Dylan. Those two unable to actually complete lap times in this qualifying without invalidating. I did look at Alex's race director, and he had a 1:13.5, so that would have put him in the conversation for 11th, 12th, 13th if he had managed to set that lap time without invalidating. But unfortunately for the Italian, it was not to be. So it is zones from Sipos, from Top Tom, Arsen, Baena managing P5. He was always there or thereabouts in the qualifying session. The Spaniard in the Mercedes. Kruzek 6th, Vexit 7th, Daniel Valla 8th, Luco and Till 9th and 10th in the Alfa Romeos.
Beautiful, and that's for the qualifying session. And we're heading into race. Let's see if the weather keeps that way. I sure hope so for the drivers, but it looks a bit overcast.
It does, doesn't it? And I tell you what, I mean, we only saw a couple of drivers trying to qualify on the mediums as well, right? I'm wondering if maybe
didn't see.
They're expecting rain.
I've looked up the top time, and it was a 1:12.3, and we usually get really close to that, like 2/10 off. I think there was already a wet setup in play.
Okay, all right. Well, a wet setup around here, I mean, that will help you a bit actually even in the dry, because you'll probably run a higher ride height at the very least, and that's going to help you over the curves. But there's probably some more elements to that setup as well that everyone was running in anticipation of what may be some damp or even wet conditions going into this race. The skies are ominous, that much is for certain. And yeah, I think we would have seen far more drivers trying out the medium tyres if it wasn't for the fact that it's going to rain pretty early in this race. So they're all expecting it to rain in the first few laps, one would have to imagine.
Exactly. And, well, we're here looking for a start in the dry. But we'll just wait. What we can expect from the race. Because that's actually the really another feature that really is missing in the game. I mean, they added the track map. That's cool for the commentators having a bit of an overview. But also, we have no information about the weather. But it's so crucial just for the race to talk strats and things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I like to not know because it's nice to have like a surprise. I like to have the suspense, you know? But it can be more exciting that way. But yeah, I think it would be nice to at least have the option in the game, that's for sure. Because, of course, you know, we ought to know, really. The spectators ought to be able to understand the weather forecast. It's only a forecast after all. It's not necessarily 100% infallible anyway. So I think, yeah, it would be nice for us to be able to see that, is for sure. I do think we are going to get rain at some point in this race, but the fact that everyone outside of the top 10, bar Leonard, has gone on the medium tyres does suggest to me that maybe the soft runners will struggle. Maybe the medium guys are thinking, I'll play it safe. Maybe it's going to be more like 10 laps into this race that the rain comes down, and by that point, you'd expect the soft tyre runners to be struggling a bit.
Yeah, exactly. That could really be possible. But we'll see how it pays out in the end, and well, maybe we don't get rain at all, and it was all just a wrong call.
It'd be a huge beat if that happened. I don't know which I'm hoping for, honestly. Sometimes the rain is nice because it mixes up a race midway through, but it does tend to make it very hard to follow other cars and tends to make the racing worse in the games at least. So I'm kind of hoping for it that it stays dry, but I won't complain if the rain does start to come. It's always nice and dramatic when that happens, as the drivers are now lining up on the grid with Alex 4 taking the very back spot in P20 in the AlphaTauri, the Italian driver in the Italian team for today. And now we will see the lights go on for these drivers. It's Zones on the right and Patrick Sipos on the left. The lights go out and we are underway here in Mexico City, and it looks like a good start off the line for Zones. Looks like Kruzix has rocketed off the line as well. He's already challenging his teammate for P4. Patrick Sipos immediately trying to get some slipstream from the Haas driver ahead and will dive it up the inside into turn 1. Is he late enough on the brakes? Not quite, as the Haas driver will retain it. There's carbon fiber going flying in the background. I think that was one of the front wings of the Ferraris, but it is Zones from Patrick Sipos in first and second. Top Tom third with Bayana all over his rear end in the Mercedes as well. He's going to send one up into turn 4, and he's going to get it done on the brakes just about. Top Tom trying to look around the outside of turn 5, but there's a Ferrari there instead, as Kruzix is looking to take advantage of the vulnerability of the Williams driver. Through turn 6 they go side by side, with Vex sitting close attendance in the McLaren as well. Kruzix does get the position on Top Tom, who falls from 3rd down to 5th in a matter of a couple of corners.
Amazing start from Kruzix, a bit of a bad one from Arsen. We saw already at the start that both the two Ferraris were next to each other, and we're just heading into one fight after another here. Still not really settled on who's first into the race. There goes Rainbow, I think, against Daniel Valle, who actually dropped back a bit, so wasn't quite the start for him. Could have been better, and we've got the first guys into the pits. That's Top Tom.
Yeah,
for sure,
Top
some
Tom
damage.
was the one who I saw the front wing going flying. It was off the Williams of Top Tom, so he has now headed into the pits. He was losing more positions as the lap went on as well, so he was really struggling out there. Arsen might also have some front wing damage in the Ferrari, either that or he's just falling a little bit away from his teammate and Vexit up ahead, who themselves are being gapped by Bayana, as Oxygen already with a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. That is very early on in the session for the Hungarian in the Racing Point.
And as usual, we got the beautiful standings bug. But, well, I think we got kind of used to it by now. So it's basically we know that we have to remember where the drivers were. But we still got Till very close to Arsen, probably the next overtake or something with Alan Roos. And I think the next thing that goes on is that the times freeze. And we have no information who's actually really close.
I love that we know the sort of procedure of the bugs as well. We're so used to them that we know exactly how they go when they come out. I'm seeing blue flags flying. I'm not sure that's correct either. Vexit looks to be pretty close behind Kruzix right now. And the DRS will be available this lap for the McLaren driver, I believe. Not actually opening it there, though, so I'm not sure if he has some sort of issue with his DRS or not. Will not be making a move on Kruzix this time around. Maybe just not trying to battle with the Ferrari driver ahead, who locks up into turn 1. Kruzix under pressure from Vexit behind for now. Maybe the McLaren driver will want to dispatch Kruzix up ahead as quick as possible, because they are losing time to the front runners. Zones dropping Patrick Sipos to just outside of a second. Bayana a further 1.5 seconds back, and then Kruzix dropping all the time from the Spaniard in the Mercedes, currently sitting in 3rd.
Yeah, I think that maybe with the DRS could be another bug that we know, because I don't know, are we actually in lap 3? Because sometimes the lap counter takes the formation lap as a lap, and then we're in lap 3, and we see the DRS can be activated by, oh no, it can actually. It can. Till just activated it, so we are in lap 3. I think the other drivers just slept on their buttons.
I mean, maybe Kruzix was just, I think, potentially not wanting to, or rather Vexit was not wanting to battle with Kruzix, so they didn't lose time if they did go side by side through the opening sector of the lap. But at the moment, Vexit is losing time regardless, because Kruzix is, as I mentioned, falling away from Bayana, who is himself falling away from Patrick Sipos and Zones at the very front. Kruzix is now under pressure from Vexit, who has finally opened that DRS. Not going to be enough into turn 1 to think about the move quite yet. We're looking to set it up through turns 1, 2, and 3, and then maybe looking to make a move through 4 on the Ferrari driver. Till picks up a 5-second penalty, and Vexit almost loses it on the exit of turn 4 there, so he's not going to be challenging Kruzix this time around either. And losing time, hand over fist at the moment. Daniel Valle up into 8th after Top Tom's pit, so that's helped him after his poor start off the line. Till has had a great start to the race. He's got a 5-second penalty to his name now, so I don't think he's going to be too happy about that one. Rainbow also the lead runner on the medium tyres, if I'm not mistaken, up in 9th for now.
Oh, we have a battle between Dylan and Pitchko going on at the back of the grid. Currently still side by side, and some front wing flying off from the McLaren or Haas, I think, in front. And well, those guys finally settled, and Dylan came out in front, gained another place, and already his attack is past Leonard. I think that was the front wing of Leonard. No, it wasn't. Seems pretty intact to me.
Leonard is going very, very slowly there in the McLaren, though. Kind of a mobile chicane right now. Not really sure what's going on for the McLaren driver. No visible wing damage, as you mentioned, but really, really struggling right now to even lay the power down here in the final sector of that. Lots of understeer in the final corner. He's not going to dive into the pits, though. He's going to be easy meat for Alex, who's had a decent start from the very back of the grid, already up 3 positions, looking to make it 4, as he will dispatch the McLaren driver down the main, straight back up towards the front. Vex, it's still close behind Kruzix. They're not close enough to think about a move quite yet.
Dylan going down the inside.
And Julian going to be battling here through turns 2 and 3.
Beautiful overtake. Well, both locking up basically, so a lot of action here, and we'll see the leaves flying around here. And it's still going on, the battle, and Pitchko wants to take a place in it, and Julian wants to have his place back, of course. Real wheel-to-wheel racing here. But the question is just leave each other enough space to still survive, because those guys tend to, well, fight too crazy, and especially here in the second in this section, you don't have the grip on the medium tires to go there too wide on the racing line. But here we go. Yeah. Dylan in front.
Might be able to do it here into the final sector of the lap, though. Pitchko running a little bit wide on the exit as a result of the battling and picking up a 3-second time penalty. I'm sure the Renault driver won't be too happy about that. Will feel that they were forced wide by Julian, but I think that was all fair between the two of them. Pitchko was able to make the move in the end. Further up the order, it's Vexit and Kruzix, and finally the British driver in the McLaren has made his way past the German in the Ferrari. Arsene in close attendance as well. Might look to dispatch his own teammates just as he's seen Vexit do only a couple of corners ago. Up towards turn 4, Arsene has the better run. Kruzix struggling at this stage of the race on those soft tyres. Maybe going deep as Vexit lags back into them. That's a bit of a nightmare here for the drivers to work out what's going on there. Vexit should be able to take the position away from Kruzix, but they're going to be driving inside of each other for a little while here. And to top it all off, I think I just saw my first droplet of rain entering the circuit here.
Yes.
Kruzix and Vexit still going side by side. At some point, one of them is surely going to have to give this up, because that must be so distracting. Kruzix is the one who regains the position.
No. You know, the thing is, we're seeing the first drops now, but is it going to start to rain really quickly, or is it just slowly fading in? Because if it's just slowly fading in, those medium guys are really on the advantage, because they can just stretch their tires out way longer and just wait if it's wait for it to be ideal for the intermediate tire. But the soft runners have to come into the pits in a few laps. They don't have really a lot of time anymore, so we'll just have to wait a bit and see what the rain does.
It looks like it's coming down fairly solidly for now. I think maybe if it continues to increase at the rate it has been, we should be okay. Polyakov leading the session, the Russian in the Alpha Tauri, currently running down in 12th. That's not going to help his chances of a solid finish in this race. Vexit, by the way, has lagged once again back through Arsene, who has now taken the position away from the McLaren driver. So Vexit struggling with some either internet or hardware issues in this race thus far. It does look like the rain isn't coming down as fast as some of these guys would like. That much is for certain. Dylan, by the way, he's had a great start to this race along with Alex. They're both up 5 positions from the very back row of the grid. However, Pitchko has managed to dispatch Dylan in the last lap or so.
I've just watched a very brave maneuver from Rainbow, trying to overtake Daniel Valle, switching from the right side to the left side immediately before the braking zone of the corner.
Very brave to do that, especially once the rain is coming down as well. That can definitely make you feel like it's going to be a little bit more slippery than perhaps it is, especially when it streams down the camera in front of you as well. Daniel Valle and Rainbow both struggling for traction on the exit of the final corner there.
So maybe it's in a few laps just about time to get on the intermediates, and we mostly have the DRS as an indicator for that, to say, alright, when the DRS gets disabled by the race director, then it's about to get time to get on the intermediates. And just seeing Daniel Valle there losing the back a bit again, but keeping it under control.
Yeah, and actually two of the drivers at the very back of the field, Julian and Oxygen, have both come into the pits and strapped on a set of intermediate tyres. It seems a little bit early for that for my money, but they're rolling the dice back there. Not too much to lose for them in this race. It looks like Alex and Dylan, the rear row starters, are battling, and Alex has made that move as well. Now it's his lagging teammate up ahead who once again leaves the session, so Alex should be able to get past Polyakov without any trouble whatsoever. Out at the very front, it's still Zones leading from Patrick Sipos, but the gap hasn't extended much over the last few laps. Sipos definitely keeping his main competitor in sight. However, Sipos did pick up a 3-second time penalty a few laps ago.
And there was
Zones
Rainbow
still yet to pick one of those
past
up. Here's
Daniel
Rainbow
Valle.
and Daniel
Not really.
Valle. Oh, wow. Okay.
Was a bit of contact there, and he pushed him kind of off track. And I mean, they're both struggling for traction. So it's about who gets DRS now, and it is Rainbow who actually gets DRS and is in front. So a bit of luck for him, so he can get away from Daniel Valle now. Was a bit of a harsh move from him, I have to say. On a sector 1 yellow flag. Oh, we had an incident here.
Kruzix has gone round. I didn't see if it was an incident with another driver or what, but the Ferrari driver spinning all the way around there, and now Rainbow and Daniel Valle looking to capitalize as well. Kruzix already down to 8th, but looks to be able to out-drag Daniel Valle behind. So that is going to put a car between Rainbow and Daniel, and that'll probably be good news for them, as they were battling pretty fiercely on the last lap, so it forces them to cool off just a little bit here, as it won't be only them cooling off, the tyres are going to be cooling off as well, as the rain is coming down a little bit harder right now. 5 drivers at the back of the field, all on those intermediates. Dylan, Julian, Top Tom, Oxygen and Black Panther have all made the decision to come into the pits and go onto the green-walled intermediate tyres. We're yet to see when the rest of the drivers are going to pull the trigger on that particular decision. Zones now leading for about 2.5 seconds from Patrick, who's fallen back a little bit in the most recent lap. Is he going to come into the pits? No, still staying out there on those soft tyres. So the front runners still don't believe it's time for the intermediates, and the game disagrees, as we're told on the right-hand side. The pit window is open to go onto intermediate tyres. Vexit is going to be into the pits from the McLaren team. Kruzix and Rainbow going to be going side by side, as Rainbow also entering the pits.
No, the pit window just showed for me to go onto the medium tire. I don't think that's the right strategy call here. I don't think you will win the race on a medium tire from now on.
That's very interesting, actually, because it told me that the intermediates was the one to go on the right-hand side there. Till getting another time penalty for corner cutting. Plenty of those thus far this race for the Alfa Romeo driver, as Vexit is now the lead driver on those intermediate tyres. Then Rainbow, Adan Ruiz, Pitchko, Daniel Valle and Polyakov have all come into the pits on this most recent lap to go onto those tyres. Only 9 drivers still out there on dry tyres, and interestingly enough, it's all the drivers that started on the mediums, with the exception of Alex, who have come into the pits for Inters. And looking at Luco and Alex out there on the track right now, it is definitely time for the Inters. They are struggling so much out there, as Alex manages to make his way past the really struggling Dutchman there. And they're all kind of swirling around all over the track right now.
Yeah, that's not really driving, that's just keeping a wiggly car on the track. And I mean, you basically just can't get really the accelerator down. Basically just 50% lifted the whole race over, the whole lap over. And then we see first front runners pitting. Zones.
Sipos is in the wall in the final corner. I think he was trying to go into the pits and lost the car somehow. He will finally be able to make it here into the pits just about, I think, in the Renault there, as my cameras are not working very well. But yeah, we're going to see all the rest of the front runners now heading into the pits. No one going to be staying out there. Leonard's probably going to have to double stack in the McLaren team. But yeah, Patrick, I'm not sure if he had to get a front wing change or not. That was a bit of a disaster for him, losing a lot of time in the final corner there.
Yeah, I'm now kind of affect the order of the cars now out, and but that should basically now the net standings, and well, it looks a bit like before, but it's also a bit mixed up, because yeah, we've seen guys on the earlier pit stops, but they're still at the back of the grid. Julian, Top Tom, Oxygen, Black Panther, but Dylan, well, I'm not sure if he won a few places, but I think he lost a bit because he was closer to Daniel Valle before. And therefore his earlier pit stop didn't really bring him much time. But I was about to say we have an internal duel between the AlphaTauris, but it's just a Williams and AlphaTauri of Alex and Dylan. Always a bit hard to tell the difference between those two cars from the front.
Indeed, yeah. Alex and Dylan both started on the very back row of the grid. Alex in 20th and Dylan in 19th. Now they're battling over 11th and 12th. So this race is going pretty okay for them thus far, as Sipos and Adan Ruiz are going to be going side by side in the stadium section. Sipos looking to make up for the fact that he almost went into the wall one lap ago and lost a whole heap of time in that final corner. Pitchko also looking to get involved here as the two Renault drivers slightly ganging up on Ruiz in that Mercedes. Will Ruiz be able to think about making the move back into turn one? Don't think he's close enough to Sipos this time around, and so the Hungarian should be able to consolidate sixth for now. Lucho, when he came into the pits, did have to change his front wing, so he's at the very back of the order, 9 seconds. I didn't quite see the incident that happened to him, but he lost a lot of time.
Getting past Top Tom, or not getting past. Now it's 2 breaks earlier into the first turn. Who gets the better line? And it is Julian, kind of, yeah, having the inside now. He should be in front of Top Tom, but I think Top Tom won't give up on his position there. And I mean, in the rain, it's just about the slipstream. It's not anymore about DRS because that's disabled, but slipstream is enough to still make overtakes. But Julian had the inside line there. Now just the outside. Outside was a bit risky there. Top Tom could have made his position back, but Julian stays in front there. Gets through in 16th now. Yeah, let's see if they can fight a bit further up. I mean, normally both of those guys are podium contestants, as well as Lucho, so a lot of the top guys at the back now. Let's see how they'll perform, and if they maybe get into the points or even further up. We don't know what this race will turn out.
Yeah, it's definitely not been a good race for the main championship contenders, which is good news for Get Owned if he's going to be making it to the final couple of races of the season, because he's not going to be punished that much for not making it here today as things stand. Daniel Valler only going to pick up a couple of points, and Lucho not on track to score any, and that's pretty much going to stay that way unless something dramatic happens to him for the remainder of this race. Looks like Daniel Valler and Adan Ruiz are going side by side, Valler being the third driver in a couple of laps to make his way past the struggling Mercedes. Ruiz not able to keep control of that car in the intermediate conditions as well as some of the other drivers, and he's losing positions hand over fist right now. It's Kruzix who is next up behind him, the Ferrari driver who started really high up and had a great launch off the line, but since then the race has not gone his way, and in fact the driver directly behind is Alex, who started from the very back of the grid. So Kruzix will not be feeling too great about that one. Also, quickly want to note that Rainbow and Vexit both gained a lot by undercutting the rest of the other drivers on those intermediate tyres by 1 lap. They've gained a serious amount of positions. Vexit is up in a second, so he's leapfrogged Baena and then Patrick Sipos as well, who had that incident. And Rainbow was running in about 7th or 8th before coming into the pit, so another great pit stop from him, and that has benefited those two drivers very much indeed.
Yeah, exactly. So we basically know that if everyone would have gone for the pit stop a bit earlier would be better, but I mean, that's about strategy plays, and if you just get it a bit better than your colleague, I mean, you don't have your engineers in the garage here in the game. You're basically just on your own as a driver, and you have to know yourself when it's wet enough for an intermediate tire. And well, it's, I think, just a bit of intuition if you're sliding too much or if it's still drivable with the slick tires. But about the race, the most interesting thing at the moment, I think, is basically the battle from 7th on. Then there's a bit of a battle between Pitchko and Daniel Valler still, and then we have, of course, the battle for, that's basically everything I was just watching, from 7th to 11th. Both the guys are pretty close together, especially for the rainy conditions. And we have Alex actually next to Kruzix, which I was driving on board.
Sipos is off the road again. He's lost his front wing in the final sector, and he is retired from the race. So the man that was running P2 in the opening section of this race in the dry conditions was looking to challenge zones for the win potentially. In the wet, it's all gone wrong for the Hungarian, who retires out of this one. That's a bit of a disaster from him. It was a good qualifying, it was a good start to the race, but it has not gone his way ever since. His teammate Pichko going to be flying the flag for the Renault team for the remainder of this race. Currently driving a little bit of a train, although Ardan Ruiz is threatening to break up that train just a little bit. Leonard and Dylan battling as well, all on their own here in towards turn 1. Leonard will sweep around the outside of the Williams driver for now, but I'm sure this battle is set to continue as Dylan looks to try and get the switch back through turn 3. Up towards turn 4 we go, just dipping back in for a tiny little bit more slipstream for getting to the braking zone here. Now you've got to be very careful on the brakes here. It's tough in the dry, it's even tougher in the wet. And Leonard still keeping his nose in it around the outside, giving Dylan something to think about for turn 6 here. Sometimes you want to actually be on the outside for turn 6, but it struggles so much to get your power down on the exit curbing there. And as a result, Dylan has managed to make his way past Leonard, back up into 11th. Alex and Ardan Ruiz are battling further up. It's Ruiz that's losing positions once again. The Mercedes driver really struggling in these intermediate conditions.
Now we're closing in about half time of the race, and oh, well, that looked a bit of losing the back there. Could be control, but was a weird camera angle too. But we're about halfway into the race, and well, we still don't know if it's continuing to rain until the end, if it's getting heavier, how the conditions are actually, and especially, will it continue or will it stop? So we gotta transition back to the this dry, and I mean that would be very interesting. 2 transitions, and I mean every transition decision is very hard to make.
Indeed, and transition decision rather hard to say as well.
Yeah.
There. But yeah, Ardan, Ruiz and Kruzix, they have been battling once again. It is the Mercedes driver getting past, and he's just falling further and further down the order right now. Kruzix being the latest driver to take advantage of the demise of Ardan Ruiz in this race, and as a result, the train that had fallen behind Pichko is now spreading out just a little bit. It's still 8/10 down to Daniel Valler, who's remaining just about in touch with the German in the Renault. And then 1.2 back to Alex, who is still doing a stellar job there in the Alpha Tauri. And now Kruzix 2.6 seconds further behind, with Ardan Ruiz still close up behind the Ferrari driver for now. But I expect to see him fall away in the future. Looks like Till's having some issues further down. Been passed by Top Tom and Julian so far on this lap. I think missing maybe a front wing element there on the Alfa Romeo, and going to be passed as well by Black Panther, making his way up the order into P15 in the Red Bull.
Yeah, there's the left end plate missing. Well, already struggling for the grip, but at the rear this time there. Yeah, I mean, already losing a front wing part is really hard in Formula 1, and you really don't think that just such a little part can make such a big impact on your aerodynamics. But I mean, on a dry track, it's already surprisingly, and then in the wet, you basically drive around, think you'll take this corner, and it's just like the car says, no, we just go straight now.
Indeed. Car not interested in turning left or right, just wanting to go straight down the middle, taking the middle road. And now Vexit up in second, falling further and further away from zones thus far this race. It's looking like a real masterclass thus far from the Polish driver, one of the few drivers in the field yet to pick up a time penalty. And on top of that, been by far the quickest out here today, both in the dry and in the wet. And ever since the demise of Patrick Sipos, it just doesn't seem like there's anyone able to challenge him for the win in this one. So he's doing a really nice job right now. Lucho trying to recover in the Alfa Romeo, has now passed Oxygen. Looks like Dylan has gone round in the Williams there. Maybe he was battling with Leonard, not sure. He might have just dropped it on his own on the exit of turn 9. But either way, it's not a happy race thus far for Dylan, who was doing really well after a while there, having started towards the very back. But now with that spin, going to be falling a little bit further away from the point scorers.
Now we see battling between Alex and Daniel Valle. Alex going down the outside, of course, to have the inside on the next turn, but can't really make the move stick. Daniel still pushes him pushes himself through the corner there. But of course, another straight of slipstream for Alex here. But this time he can't position himself to get the spot to make the overtake, and those second turns are way harder than the first ones. They're kind of soft, and the second thing is much more like a real chicane there.
Ooh, here's an interesting one for you. Lucho, the Dutch driver in the Alpha, has headed into the pits for a set of full wet tyres. Oxygen also just came in, but went for another set of intermediate. So they definitely have different reads about the conditions out there on track at the moment. I would say it still looks like intermediate conditions from me, but maybe Lucho realizing that he needs to do something completely different to the rest of the field to even have a chance of making it up through the order and into the points where he really wants to be, to challenge Daniel Valle, who's doing a good job of holding on to 7th right now, but Alex is looking to take that away from him, continuing his heroic drive up from the very rear of the field. Also further up, Baena getting closer to Vexit now. The Spaniard might want to take that position back from the British driver who jumped in the pit stops. Baena will definitely have designs on 2nd position, and he has been very, very solid both in qualifying and in the race thus far today.
Yeah, we've seen some very solid, but also some very crazy racing from the guys here today. Arsen also holding himself up into 4th place. I think he had a bit of a hard start at the beginning. He dropped back to the 8th, 9th. Crew 6 had the better one, if I'm informed correctly. I think it was this way round. It was of course with the 2 Ferraris, but Crew 6 dropped a bit back the last few laps. So yeah, lost the position he gained at the start, and well, Alex still battling with Daniel Valle, while Bina is pulling us back a bit. Not really, about to hold the 1 second gap to his man in front, to Vexit. And at the end, Julian and Top Tom are also giving it a go.
Ooh.
Oh, and Lucho retired.
Yeah, just went straight back into the pits and retired. So evidently decided those wet tyres were not the way, and as a result didn't want to face making another pit stop onto the intermediates, and has just decided to throw in the towel there for the Alfa Romeo team. So Lucho not going to be scoring here today, and that just leaves Daniel Valle of the championship contenders. Guess-owned was not present here today. Lucho may as well not have been with the DNF. So Daniel Valle getting some free points already with the advantage in terms of points in the standings as well, as Alex all over his rear wing. So he'll want to make sure that he's not going to get too feisty in his defense from the Italian behind, because otherwise we could well see him also DNFing from this race, or at least falling down the order. He definitely does not want that. Baena picking up another 3-second time penalty on top of what is already 1 3-second time penalty and a 5-second time penalty that the Spaniard has. So starting to rack up those penalty points, and as a result, even if he does get past Vexit, he'll need to get a wiggle on towards the end of this race, but right now he's actually dropping a little bit further away again from the McLaren up ahead.
But we have to say it's a really good race so far from Zones, Arsen and Daniel Valle for not having any penalties so far, over halfway into the race. And I mean, especially for Zones, that's just crucial for the race win. I mean, he has now built up a gap that he basically could have 3 penalties, and I mean, of course, Vexit has penalties too, so he has a 3-second time penalty. So Zones could get 3 3-second time penalties, and still will be in front. But of course, well, you just don't want that, and that's a good buffer to just have and sit on and relax on, in case you just lose a bit of concentration and get a cut there, but then you really have to get together again.
Here comes Alex, coming up to the rear end of Daniel Valle. The Racing Point driver will go defensive into turn 1, offering the switchback for Alex in the Alpha Tauri, looking to try and find a way past Daniel. He's not been able to do it on the last couple of laps. He's been close up behind the Racing Point. These two have been the most likely to battle for the last few laps, but it just seems like Alex doesn't have enough in the tank to manage to make his way past Daniel Valle, who gets it slowed down just about for turn 4 there, turn 5, and that is pretty much it for the overtaking opportunities at the opening of this lap. Till seems to be off the track there in the second sector, facing the wrong way in that Alfa Romeo, crossing over the track, but luckily the car is ghosted, so no one going to be colliding with the Frenchman, who has not had a day to remember in the race.
Yeah, exactly. Also, a normal podium contestant, or at least someone in the top spots, but today it's just not going the normal way. Yeah, well, we had Julian on the podium, the top on the podium, and I think Polyakov was also sometimes fighting with the top guys. Only ones we know from the top are Arsen, Pichko, Daniel Valle, and Zones, I think, too. So a bit of a different race today, but well, I think that's basically what describes Mexico. It's just not well the usual race somehow. At least
yeah, no, definitely. It's a very unusual circuit. There's a lot of the trade-off in setup that you have to do will only have been exaggerated by the wet conditions that some of the drivers have felt the need to set up their cars for. We are seeing quite a few of these guys now heading into the pits for a fresh set of intermediates. So evidently they don't think this rain is lightening up any soon, and equally they don't think it's going to get to extreme wet conditions either. So they are not going to be able to make it to the end on those inters and having to go in for a fresh set. And we'll see how much that of an advantage that will gain for those who come into the pits. It's recently Ardan Ruiz, Leonard Black Panther, Julian and Topton, who are all on absolutely brand spanking new intermediate tyres. Oxygen and Till have also gone for fresh ones, but Till has rather ruined his with a spin through the second sector of the lap a couple of laps ago. Topton still going to be fighting with Julian. The German driver got past him a couple of laps ago. But ever since then, Topton has been sticking around on the rear wing of the Haas, not willing to let that one go too easily.
But assuming that it'll continue to rain until the end, I don't know if the earlier stop was the better option. But I mean, of course, if you say your tires are dead, then your tires are dead. But we have now 13 or 14 laps left to go, and just stretching those tires like 2 laps more would have helped them, because I mean they were already on lap 11 or 12 or something, but now they have to go for even longer on their second stint. So, well, I'm not sure, because going for another pit stop will completely be a time waste, so they have to complete with their tires they now pitted on, because 13-14 laps is drivable in one intermediate tire, and pitting for another will be waste.
Vexit is the latest driver to roll the dice and go for a fresh set along with Pichko and Alex. Alex was able to stay ahead of Ardan Ruiz pretty comfortably, as well as Pichko being able to stay ahead of the pair of them in these pit stops. So the undercut not significant enough for Ardan to get too close to the guys that passed him on that first set of intermediate tyres. Leonard picking up another 3-second time penalty, joining the club, although he was already a member of the club beforehand. We'll see what Vexit can do on these inters, though. Was 6, maybe even more than that, maybe more like 7 seconds behind Zones before coming into the pit. So it's going to have to be a hell of an undercut, and Zones does respond in the Haas, straight into the pits for him for a fresh set of inters as well. Arson is the next driver to join the club. Only 2 remaining without penalties in this race in the form of Daniel Valle and our race leader Zones.
And speaking of the club, Leonard is not only in the club, he's currently leading the club with 20 seconds worth of time penalties.
Oh dear. Yikes, that is not a good look for Leonard here in this one. 15 seconds for Ardan Ruiz, 12 for Julian, and 15 as well for Till. The rest will have 3, 6, or 9. So those are the only guys in the double figures right now. But most of the race leaders have now come into the pits, and most of the field, indeed, have now come into the pits. The only driver yet to get onto a second set of intermediates is Kruzix. Still going out there in the Ferrari, still just chipping away for now, but will probably want to come into the pit sooner rather than later, as he's going to see that gap between himself and his teammate behind absolutely turn into in these next couple of laps. 3.5 seconds for now, but with the freshness of these inters, I'd expect Arson to be getting closer and closer over the next few corners once he's got those tyres up to temperature, and right now we're already seeing it coming down by about a tenth every time it updates.
Yes, it'll be just a matter of time, but I think it'll also just be a matter of time when Kruzix gets in the pits, because staying much longer out than now is really unnecessary. Because he went for 12 laps on those inters, there's only 12 laps to go, so where's the reason to not go for a pit stop? The question is, how much time did he waste? I mean, he for sure can't stay in front of Arsen, but well, he was in about 8th before, I think. Does he get out before or after Alex and or Pichko?
Be in a battle with Daniel Valle, trying to be around there. I think when he comes into the pits, he'll want to come out ahead of the Racing Point driver if he can. But I'd be surprised, as he has lost quite a lot of time on that next lap on those intermediates as well. So let's see where he is indeed going to file back out into the order. Looks like Daniel Valla will be comfortably getting past before the Ferrari makes it to the pit exit. So it'll be between Ardan Ruiz and Daniel Valla, although Ardan actually might get pretty close to Kruzix as well here. The Ferrari driver only just leading the pits, and the Mercedes is actually going to blast past as well. So it gets even worse for Kruzix, down into 10th, and you can see the gap between himself and Ruiz there. That is definitely, you know, if he had come into the pits one lap sooner, he would have been ahead of the Mercedes.
Yeah, for sure. And right at the back of Daniel Valla. And then you could apply a bit of pressure to Daniel. Which means that Alex may have a bit of space off, even though Daniel isn't even that close to Alex anymore. Alex spun it way around and is now attacking Pichko for 6th place, and well, both on one level tiles, so basically there's no big difference. It's just now on the drivers and on their wet driving skills to get around this circuit the quickest way possible. And I mean, especially in the wet, you can use the mistakes of your opponent even more, because there will be just more mistakes made.
Absolutely, yeah. And Pichko not looking to make too many mistakes right now. Alex all over the back of him, putting him under the maximum amount of pressure he can to try and ensure that the German does indeed make one of those mistakes. See if he's going to cave to the pressure or not here. They go on to the 26th lap of the race. Using all the overtake available to him is Alex, but I don't think he's going to have enough in the tank, in the battery, to make a move on Pichko this time around. Thinks about making a move up the inside. If there's yellows in Sector 2, I think that might have been Till once again, probably just getting out of the way of, I think that is Oxygen, just driving past him in the middle sector there. But back with Alex and Pichko, it's still close. But once again, it's just Pichko has more left in the battery in terms of the remaining charge available, and thus can run an overtake for longer and can keep Alex behind. So Alex will want to charge up that battery just a little bit behind the Renault before making another stab at it. Vexit gets yet another 3-second time penalty. That is up to 6 for him. 3 for Arson, 6 for Baena, 3 for Rainbow, and then 6 for both Pichko and Alex. So Alex also wants to get past Pichko as soon as possible to make sure that he can build a gap to Daniel Valla behind as well, because at the moment he stands to lose out on that position.
Yeah, we got just, oh, I just made 3 screenshots or something because I was in the wrong row of the F keys. Top Tom is fighting against Julian again. He's about to get past, and well, the fight continues. I mean, those guys were always in this 1 second margin. Black Panther may be getting involved now too, and well, let's see if Top Tom can hold this position or if Julian can take it back, because those guys were battling all day and the tire difference isn't that big, so it's basically just on the drivers who makes the more mistakes, and Alex is actually just getting past Pichko.
The battle's not over yet, though, as Pichko does have the opportunity for a switchback, but he was slow through turn 2, and he's given Alex a free turn 3, so Alex should be able to just drive away from him now in that AlphaTauri. Great stuff from the Italian thus far this race. Really, he has been the standout performer alongside Zones thus far in this one. Zones, of course, just absolutely impeccable at the front, but Alex has really torn his way up through the field. Very impressive stuff indeed here in ORL Split B. Pichko will just have to settle back down in 7th position. Wants to build a gap to Daniel Valla behind. He has 6 seconds of penalties, though, and Valla still on 0. So the Spaniard should look to gain from Pichko once we get to the checkered flag here, with only a few laps remaining in this race. The battle between Julian and Black Panther is still going on as well as we go through, what is this, turn 4. But Black Panther forced to stay behind for now. Can't get a switch back up towards 6. Just not enough of a straight on the exit there, so he'll have to settle down behind the German for another half a lap or so before trying the move once again, maybe into turn 1 on the next lap. This is giving Top Tom a little bit of a breather as well, as he's been able to build 1.2 seconds to the cars behind. Black Panther, in his haste to get past Julian, picks up a 3-second time penalty.
I have to say that Julian looks a bit off pace to me, because I mean, I don't know if he was really holding back Top Tom. That could have been one of the problems why Top Tom couldn't really get past. But now that Black Panther got so close, I'm not sure if he's just at the moment not really at the top of his pace. and if the rainy conditions really give him the rest. And there he goes into the pit lane. I mean, oh, and Top Tom retired, Till retired, Julian retired too.
Huh, okay.
What's happening now?
I guess they all just decided to give up at the same moment there, as they were a long way away from the points, about 20 seconds in total away from the point scorers, but there's always the chance of a safety car or something, and they were having a nice little battle with one another as well, so I'm surprised they didn't want to just see this one out, only a few laps left to go. But evidently, maybe just getting to them, trying to wrestle their cars around a very wet Mexico City.
Yeah, well, maybe they don't like the wet conditions. No, it could be the thing, but I mean, they were in a fight, so I don't really see I mean, I see the point of quitting if you're all last with like 1 lap gap to the next one, so you're just sitting there having been blue flagged constantly. That's not fun. But if you're still going for a battle, why would you retire from the race?
Yeah, no, indeed. It is a bit of a strange one there. And both of their cars have, I think, actually come back out of the pits. I'm going to be retiring through turn 1, so that's going to be a bit of an annoyance for the cars driving through. Because I think Baena are currently going past them right now on the track. And they have found a place to get off the track and retire. And Leonard also going to be retiring in the pits as well. He wasn't that far away from the point, so he is now also the next driver to throw in that towel. And I tell you what, they don't want to be throwing those towels too much, because they're going to need them after this race to dry off a little bit here, because they're going to be getting absolutely soaking wet in these cockpits. Kruzek still in 10th, within a second of Ardan Ruiz, so that looks like the most likely battle to reignite on this circuit for now. Ardan still struggling in these intermediate conditions, but has managed to hold on to a point-scoring finish, and has been able to comfortably deal with these sort of drivers outside of the top 10, who just haven't had the pace of those inside at the moment.
Yeah, exactly, and well, that's the only thing we're just looking out for. We have the grid now completely spread apart, everywhere, kind of big gaps, at least mostly over the 1 second window, except for Crow 6. So there is not really much action to come, except Alex wants to prove me wrong, wants to get close enough to Rainbow again, and well, not again, but to get another position. But he's really on a run today. He's really in a good run there, showing some great pace, getting past Daniel Valle, championship leader, Pitchko, I think also the race winner, and now Rainbow the next one to sneak himself past. Well, let's see how he makes the mistake. It's not really time yet. He's not close enough yet, but I think in the next lap he'll be ready to go for the slipstream overtake onto the main lane, main straight. And Julian left the session, but he disqualified, of course, already. So with just 14 drivers left in the session, I think that's less than retired in Monaco.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are really not feeling it out here today, as Black Panther getting a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits. He's up to 17, and now that Leonard is retired, he's joint president of the penalties club, alongside Dylan, also sitting on 17 seconds worth of penalties. Baena, of course, was able to serve their 5-second penalty in the pit lane, and as a result, that is why Arsene has managed to get past the Mercedes driver. Probably should have mentioned that one a little bit earlier. That happened a fair few laps ago, but yeah, Baena down into 4th and outside of podium contention for now, and not really eating into the gap to the Russian ahead. So it does look like, unless they make some major mistakes, the podium slots are pretty much nailed on with Zones, Vexit, and then Arsene at the moment. Alex is the one looking to make moves here on the track. He's made 14 of them already thus far this race, up 14 positions from where he started, of course. But now the Lithuanian Rainbow is the next on his list in the sister team Red Bull car up ahead, as Kruzek looks to have made a move on Ardan Ruiz behind. Can Alex make a move here into turn 4? Rainbow goes defensive very early indeed, not wanting to give any opportunity to the Italian behind as they enter the twisty second sector of the lap now. So I don't think there's going to be any overtaking for a few corners yet.
Oh no, surely the twisty section is just known for keeping calm and keeping behind. The only thing which opens an overtake maneuver for you here is if someone really gets the racing line wrong or just loses its back. But normally you don't get an overtake here, and normally you also don't go too wide here, because that will cost you a lot of time. and everybody behind you will just swear at you.
Indeed, yeah. Alex is still very, very close behind Rainbow. Maybe this time around he might be able to think about a move. Struggling on the exit of turn, what is the final corner? Turn 17 there, as Alex is trying to lay the power down onto the main straight. And as a result of those moments under traction, Rainbow's probably been given a little bit of a breather here. I don't think Alex will be able to close him down. He's got nothing left in the battery, as he's had pretty much this whole race. Alex has always been very, very low on battery charge indeed. Every single time I've been on board with the AlphaTauri drive, but look how much he gains through turns 1, 2, and 3. He is special through that section of the circuit. And now, can he look to set up a move into turn 4 using it? Not quite this time around. That straight, just not long enough for the AlphaTauri.
It's just not quite enough the stuff you need. And, I mean, he got this half of a lap to just save your S, because out of most of the other corners, or out of basically all of the other corners, you don't really use the ERS. Especially in the rain, it just causes you a lot of tire slipping. And we just see Rainbow throwing the car really into the corners. At the edge of the grip there. At the other edge of what's possible for the tires. Keep the cars on track. But that's what we do in F1. Those drivers are driving at the absolute limit of those cars, of those tires and of those tracks, and therefore we see that many penalties. It's really a hard one for me today. Therefore we see those many penalties, but here we go. Alex going down the inside off the long straight and into the first turn, and it makes it stick already beforehand. So finally he made his move there and just now needs to keep it in front. Not really using much of the overtake button there, but yes, he seems to make it stick, and I think now he can improve on his lap time again. And if he did it the same way if he will do it with the same way like Pitchko and Daniel Vella did, well, he can just drive away from Rainbow, and it really looks like he's going to do it again, because Rainbow already has a 1 second gap to him.
Yeah, the Lithuanian just fading without a trace right now off the back of the AlphaTauri. Alex pushing like a madman out there right now. It's 2.6, 2.5 seconds up to Baena. They're on the same amount of penalties. Alex does need to clear Rainbow by 3 seconds to ensure he finishes ahead of the Lithuanian come the checkered flag, given the penalty situation at this stage of the race. But I think he'll have more than that on his mind. I think he'll be wanting to take 4th as well. What a drive it has been thus far. There's only a couple of laps left to go in this race. 3 once he comes across the line here. So it might be a bit too much of a tall order to expect him to be able to catch up and pass Baena before the end of this race. But if he'd passed Rainbow a little bit sooner, if he hadn't got mired behind him for a couple of laps, then maybe we would be seeing Alex already challenging the Mercedes for 4th position. Arsen definitely out of reach in 3rd, though, in the Ferrari. Vex sits 2nd, 8.5 seconds away from our current race leader, Zones, who has just been absolutely on another level today.
Yeah, exactly. In completely dominating qualifying, dominating the wet track. I think he had really prepared himself for the wet conditions, and maybe had kind of the best wet setup. So it was just complete domination from Zones all the race through. You know, we basically had nearly no lap without him leading. But yeah, it's still for Alex. I mean, yeah, as you said, he could have maybe had the podium spots if he just had made that overtake a bit earlier, but well, that's just a bit of racing, you know. It not always goes like you want it to be, and of course the race has to have an end somewhere, and we're getting close to it now. Just 2 laps left, and with those 2 laps to go, unfortunately Alex doesn't have enough time to get past both of Baena and Arsen. So maybe it'll be a photo finisher with Baena, but more isn't really possible and about to happen.
Tell you what, Alex has got a really interesting driving style here in the wet. He's avoiding the lower gears as best as he can. He's not going below third gear at pretty much any part of this circuit. He was in fourth in the final corner from what I could tell. So he's just avoiding wheel spin at all costs by keeping it in a much higher gear and not revving out that engine until he gets into the higher zones. He does go down into second just a little bit there. But you can see he's shifting up before it even gets close to the rev limiter on the exit of these corners. So interesting adaptation to the intermediate conditions from Alex, and maybe that's why we're seeing him charge through the field just as quickly as he is, as he's just not letting any wheel spin develop there in the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, the quick shifting is really overpowered, and not overpowered, but it's really strong in this game. Just skipping the high revs to gain more traction on the track actually. And as we're talking, we just entered last lap. Zones with his dominant lead, just bombing down the main straight into the first turn. And well, Alex has one lap to kind of get close to Bina a bit, but he did an amazing job, an amazing race, and I'm not sure. I don't think he'll be able to make that overtake stick in this last lap. That would be incredible, and but I don't think this is really possible.
Praying for a mistake from the Spaniard up ahead in that Mercedes, but Baena is not being obliging whatsoever. It's been a good drive from Baena today. It's been a great drive from Alex, but nevertheless it looks like the Mercedes is going to finish ahead on track and on penalties as well. They have managed to gap Rainbow down to 3 seconds behind Alex as well, so they will both finish ahead of him on track as things stand and in terms of penalties. Zones on his lap of honor, coming into the stadium section for the final time here in the Haas. And we've hardly even taken a look at him this race. He's just been too dominant for his own good in the end. Not really been worth the camera time, but you can see how smooth he is through this final section of the lap. The final corner goes down briefly in the first gear before shifting all the way back up. Very quick indeed, and very quick throughout this race. Zones takes the win here in Mexico in ORL Split B, and does it in style. Vexit going to be following along across the line in second with 6 seconds of penalties to his name. He smashes it across the line for style. Arson coming home third. Baena will follow him home about 4.7 seconds behind him fourth, with Alex so close to the rear end of that Mercedes, but not quite close enough to claim the position. Rainbow can't steal it away on penalties. He'll be in sixth. Pitchko falling down, losing out to Daniel Valler, who was penaltyless to the end, just like Zones was. Kruzix in 9th, and Ardan Ruiz will come home in 10th, and the final of the point scorers.
Now with just Black Panther and Polyakov missing, but Black Panther has also about 20 seconds of time penalties. So I don't think he'll slot back, because Oxygen also has a lot of penalties, and he's 30 seconds behind, and a lap, I think so. Oh, not really a lap, not sure. But here we are at the end of the race. Zones winning this one. I think we had a really good race from him last time too. I know he was just 9th last time, but he was, I think, fighting for the top spots to a bit in the race, then finished further down. But here we have him, Zones, on the podium spots. In second place with Vectrix. Was it
Vexit? Yeah.
Vexit, exactly. I don't know why I immediately forget every name that finished on the podium. That's kind of a commentator illness, but
yeah, Zones from Vexit from Arson, there you go. You can read them out in front of yourself there. But yeah, Zones, every time I've watched him drive, he's been very, very impressive to me. I've seen him here, there, around the place for the last couple of years, and he's always looked like, no matter which league I've seen him in, he seemed to be one of the top drivers in that league, and he proved that he was absolutely the top driver in the field here today. We'll never know what could have happened if Alex could have had a better qualifying, maybe started not from 20th, but somewhere much further up the order. Maybe we would have seen the Italian challenging him to the end of this race, and maybe if it stayed dry, Sipos Patrick might have been able to do something as well. It was not to be for him, as he was the first retirement of this race, and after that it looked pretty easy for Zones in the end. I'm sure he was still struggling in that cockpit with the intermediate conditions, but nevertheless, he didn't show it on the outside. A dominating performance from the Polish driver.
Yeah, and a beautiful race, this one. And now we're just hoping to get some guys in for the interviews. Of course, aiming for the top 3, if they want to get in. Getting Black Panther to do his best to get us some mates. And as soon as I'm out of the game, I can do some asking for interviews too. And I will just wait for a second.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, we'll see what everyone who we can wrangle to join us here in the caster booth for an interview here. I'm hoping to be able to ask Zones a couple of questions. I think after his performance, just how on earth is he that quick might be the first question I ask him when he comes in here. We'll have to wait and see who we're gonna get.
And well, we'll go down to we're going down to voice 2 to because I think they can talk or join into our booth. So question is sent. Hopefully someone will respond, but normally they somehow plop up at the same time, all of them, just in a few more seconds.
Yeah.
It's of course they've just driven for 45 minutes or something, or even more with qualifying included, over an hour, giving it everything on the track. So we have to give him a pause.
For sure.
To take a break, go to the bathroom and stuff, getting something to drink.
Yeah, indeed. Why don't we talk about maybe driver of the day then? Who are we reckoning here for driver of the day? I mean, there's two obvious ones that stand out, but I assume you'll agree with me that it's between Alex and Zones for driver of the day here today, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I have to say, I am always one of the guys who says, well, I mean, of course it's incredible to dominate the race so much as Zones did, but craving through all of the field from the back of the grid, I think that's more like a driver of the day, and I think for me it's Alex.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with you in the end. I mean, we'll never know which of the two of them would have actually won if it was a straight fight between them, but I think Alex really was on great form there today. So I think you're right in thinking that he had the opportunity, right? He was given the big opportunity from the back of the grid to make that sort of performance happen, but he definitely stepped up to the plate. So I would 100% agree with you on that one. And the fact that he nearly got Baena right at the end as well was even more impressive, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And as we've been talking, we have our first driver joined, and it's Vexit finishing on P2.
So yeah, Vexit, how are you doing? How are you feeling after that race then?
Yeah, feeling really good after that race. Wasn't one that was particularly won on raw battling or pace, but well, not one, but well driven. I think it was well. Sorry, my mind's a bit of a mess at the moment. But yeah, felt like I did a really good race, especially with strategy. Judged the conditions well, with the switch onto the inters, and yeah, just in general felt really like quite a good race.
Yeah, I noticed actually the second pit stop onto the intermediates got you a huge undercut on the rest of the field, gained you all the way up into P2, and from there you never really looked back. Was that a decision you were very confident on? Was everyone aware of the fact that there was definitely going to be intermediate tyres to the end of the race?
We knew that it was definitely going to be light rain for a long time, and that we couldn't extend the inters long enough if there was a potential dry period. So I decided to go for just a one-lap undercut to try and pull a little bit of a gap, because by that time I had quite a few warnings, just so I could get a bit more of a comfortable gap against Arson. But yeah, it was definitely a risk, but I think it was a well-judged and calculated risk.
For sure, yeah, and a well-judged and calculated race up to the podium. Maku, any further questions?
Just maybe about America, yeah, on next race. We switched this around last time. We said next race was America, but they switched places, America and Mexico. In the spreadsheet, they're still wrong. But this time we're going for the circuit of the United States in Texas. So what are your thoughts about it? Do you like it? Don't you like it?
It's a decent track, especially with Sector 1 with lots of fast corners and quite a few really enjoyable corners. It's a real driver's circuit. It's got quite a lot of technical corners, fast ones, good overtaking opportunities, so it should be an exciting race. But there's a couple of corners which I definitely need to work on around there. Especially, I think the penultimate corner is definitely one of them that I need to work on. But overall, I like it, both in real life and as a track on this game.
Yeah, I mean, there will be many track invalidations around the second to last corner there. We had this last time round, but yeah, that will be very interesting qualifying, of course. We've seen this today with a lot of validations, but America will be about the same there. But yeah, looking forward to that one. Then congratulations to P2 for you.
Thanks.
And I'm not sure if there's anyone further joining, but
Yeah. Does seem like that might be it in terms of interviews today. So I think we can probably wrap up here if that's all right with you.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, thank you guys all very, very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. This has been the ORL Split 2, Split B, F2, whatever you want to call it, race in Mexico City, round 20 of the season. Won by Zones, Vexit taking second and being kind enough to join us in the commentary box. Arson managing third in the Ferrari. And then a real driver of the day performance from Alex as well. So plenty of stuff to look at. It was a great fun race. And I'm glad to be back here in ORL as well. So thank you guys very, very much for watching and good night.
Good night, guys. See you next time.